Thank you guys for tuning in for another episode of Bridge Stories. Today, I get the honor of sitting down with a man who probably has a little bit of beef with a car insurance company because they stole his domain. I have none other than the General, David Armendariz, sitting across from me.
I'm glad to be here. I really am.
Thank
It's
you.
a pleasure. And it's an honor, really. I think it's a great thing to get everybody's stories out there, and tell how the Lord has worked in our lives,
He certainly has worked in yours. I've only heard little tidbits, so I'm ecstatic to hear the full story of what happened with you.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
I know you have probably shared your testimony more than anyone else in the church. I think that would probably be a safe bet just because of how many people you've impacted and how long you've been discipling to others. And I appreciate that a lot, just as a Christian, that you are willing to put in the work, put in the effort. It's how you earned the nickname in the first place.
Yes.
So wherever you want to kind of kick off, wherever your starting point is when you deliver your testimony.
Well, I always started out, with, birth, I was born in Chicago. My mother is, she's legally, mentally challenged. All right. So my mother, she wound up pregnant with me when she was 16. My father, come from Mexico, kind of used my mother to get a green card. And, he was real violent to her. He was a gang member and all that. So, my mother fled down here to get away from him. She was pregnant with my brother. And, so we come down here. Her sister lived here, and, we moved to Corinth, and we're in the projects in Corinth. And, so, we was like the only white family in the whole projects, so kind of growing up in there, I was like the odd one out there, was always, getting beat up by the other kids and stuff like that, And then, so she had me and my brother. And like I said, my mother, she didn't, she don't know how to read. She don't know how to write. She didn't know how to do nothing, but she had these kids, And so she met a guy from Burnsville and married him and had my youngest brother. And, he was quite abusive to me and my other brother, So, he just, he called us names, hit us with sticks, and just, beat us, whatever he could. So, and that was most of my life growing up. My mother, there was a church down the road, and we walked to church, and that was like my only, real peace. But, I got saved there at this church. But, at that time, you really don't know what you're doing. I wasn't even a teenager, okay. So we went there, and I knew something, was going on there, but I really didn't know as I became get closer to being a teenager, around 11, 12-year-old. I can remember, like I said, my stepfather, he drank beer, drank whiskey, and I assume he smoked weed because I found the weed plants in the backyard, And I can remember, like I said, he would beat us up and stuff like that, and just treat us pretty bad. And one day I was going to kill myself. And I can always remember my mother telling me, dope will kill you, you know what I mean? So, you took that to heart, So when me and a buddy found it, he's like, man, these are marijuana plants. These things were like 6, 7 foot tall, and back in them days, you had the brown paper sacks, at the grocery store. So, I decided I was going to kill myself. And so I go out there and pick the buds off of it and going to smoke it in this brown paper sack, And of course, it was just a mess. The sack would catch on fire and everything. But, I got a couple of hits, you know what I mean? And I got some hits off of it. And I just sit there crying, thinking I'm going to die. And once I realized it, everything started kind of getting funny and I wasn't dying no more, you know what I mean? That started the drug thing then, Yeah. So after that, I started, smoking a lot of weed. I sneak this whiskey. So that started my down spiral. By the time I was 12, so you can imagine how young I'm already drinking and smoking weed and stuff,
Right.
And by the time I was 12, DHS took me out of the home, So then I started going to children's shelters and foster homes, and it was in and out of them. And by the time I was, at that point, I done got, I really didn't think I was that bad of a kid. I liked to smoke weed and run around and drink. But, listen to heavy metal, had long hair, had earring, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, but, as far as just going out and really getting in trouble, I didn't do too much like that other than just stuff like that. I wasn't the type to go break in house, nothing like that,
Right.
and just going, hanging out, trying to get high and all that. And so I remember when I was 15, I'd done been out of church the whole time I was going, from the time I left mom's and into the foster homes and all that. I was finally my uncle took me in. And so I was going to school and I met this girl in school and we started dating. I was 15 at this time. And so their parents said, well, if you're going to date my daughter, you got to go to church with us. And I was like, all right. So I was like, what church y'all go to, And they said, we go to Burnsville Pentecostal Church, So that was here at the time, And I was like, all right. So I come from a Baptist church, And so we go there, and I think these folks are just plumb crazy, you know what I mean? They running around the church, they're hooping and hollering, and and I'm like, man, what is wrong with these folks here, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I really didn't kind of get it there, and because coming from where I learned, they don't tell you about all that stuff,
Right.
And so I guess it's around November, and they tell us, we got this special preacher coming in, and he's like a prophet, And I was like, what is a prophet? Oh, he'll come up to you and say this and that, and supposedly it happens, And I'm like, that's a crock of bull. I ain't gonna believe that, And this dude comes through and he goes through the church doing it. His name's Brother Pierce, you know what I mean? And so a couple days later, the girl's breaking up with me. So she's like, I said, what's going on? I thought everything's going well. She's like, Brother Pierce said, you can go far away for a very long time. And every time he says something, it comes true. And so, I'm doing what he says, you know what I mean? And I was like, really, man, I was mad. Riding around with my buddies. And he had a big tour bus, like a tour bus that he rode around in.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my buddy, we was drinking beer one day. I pull up in there, I cussed that dude out, threatened to cut his throat, all kinds of stuff, you know what I mean? Oh, yeah, I was pretty nasty, And so that was in November. And then January the 8th, I'm sitting in jail in Tishomingo County on capital murder, armed robbery, armed burglary charges.
Mm.
I'm in a car with a couple guys. They robbed and killed a man. I was in the car with them, and I was 15-year-old at the time. So, I really didn't realize the consequences of what just happened.
Right.
Even while I was, when they arrested me, I kept thinking I was going to go home. You know what I mean? Because I really didn't do nothing. I was just, with them. I kind of got stuck in a situation where, I didn't think, like I was the intent on it. Of course, that wasn't the case. Any time in a commission of a crime like that, you're part of it. Regardless of what the circumstances were. And so, of course, I sit in jail for I imagine about a little over a year. During that time, and we escaped out of jail. Just tore the jail up. It just, at that point, I done lost hope. You know what I mean? And done got buck wild, really. Matter of fact, they got so tired of us. They separated us. They sent me to Alcorn County, sent one to Itawamba County.
Wow.
Yeah, at 15-year-old. Look, the county jail at that time, when we got there, it had one little pen on the back side of it where they sent everything out. So they done built a pen all the way around the back side to keep, because we done run out the door. They done put metal plating on the walls because we done busted out the front of the jail there. You know what I mean? And they done got, you know what I mean? And that was at 15-year-old, Yeah, so they bring it, when I go to court, they bring me in. They give me a 30-year sentence. And, just that quick that night, they come in and they drove us in the cop car to Rankin County, me and my rap partner. They were ready. They didn't wait for no bus. They got us out there, And, so I go to prison, and, I really didn't have I meant to do the right thing when I got down there. I knew, this, I had to do the right thing. I figured I'd come up for parole in like 5 years is what it was supposed to be. And I get down there and I find out that they kind of tricked me into taking the plea agreement. They dropped a capital murder charge on me and had me plead guilty to an armed robbery charge, where if I'd pled guilty to a murder charge, I would have come up for parole during a quarter of it. But the armed robbery carries a mandatory 10 years before you can come up for parole. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Anything over 10, you come up for parole after doing 10. So if you had 11, you still had to do 10 years. You know, anything under 10 was mandatory, no good time, you know.
Wow.
And so I wrote my lawyer back, and he acted like he never did tell me that. Oh, that made me so mad. And I lost it then, you know. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't going to get involved in all the gang stuff, and then I wound up getting involved in the gangs. And, of course, I rose up through the ranks of it. And, you know, instead of doing the right things, I done the wrong things. So, you know, I was in Parchment for about 8 years of my life there. And that first time, and, you know, about half of that I stayed in solitary confinement, you know. Yeah, I mean, you know, long stretches, 9 months here, 8 months there, you know. And, but, you know, you know, that's where I got some of the, you know, I could see God knocking on my door so many times now. I mean, I can remember when I was in the hole one time and they had a prison ministry that come in. And, you know, I remember the guy, I could hear him. I was down there myself. Is anybody from Tishomingo County here? And he's like, yeah, there's one down there in the back. So you may not want to go down there and talk to him, you know. And so he comes down there anyway, and I cuss him out, send him down the road. You know what I mean? You know, because at that point, you know, anybody tried to, you know, to me, you know, when you go to prison, most people in prison, they look down on that. You know what I mean? It's usually people that, you know, they've got a bad crime, you know, usually a sex crime or something like that. And, you know, and it's just what everybody else looks at them weakly, you know what I mean? Like they're weaker, you know, and they prey on them, you know, because a lot of them won't fight and stuff. So, you know, that's my perspective of it, you know. And anyway, just to go fast forward ahead, to show you where God, anyway, like I said, I got out in like 2000. So I went in, I was 15. When I got out, I was 29, you know, to put it in perspective there, how long I'd been in there. I missed the entire decade of the 90s. So when I got out, all I had was, you know, I got a GED while I was in there, and that was it. And, you know, I come out into a world that's totally, I didn't know, you know what I mean? And so, you know, I wanted to get a job, and, you know, but no one would hire you. You know, I couldn't get a job. So I wound up going to roofing, and I didn't do drugs. I was straight militant. You know what I mean? The whole time I was in there, I quit doing drugs. I didn't use nothing that hurt my body. I exercised all the time. I was straight militant thinking, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I come out here like that, you know.
Was that for a reason? Like, was that for defense? You just wanted to stay on the ready, or?
Yeah. But see, at that time, before I got out, I done come up and you know, I was like the regional commander for the Aryan Brotherhood after it come to Mississippi, you know. And so when I come out, that was the way we was back then. You know, we worked out, we kept in shape, we was always ready to go to war, you know. Gotcha. And there's always, you know, a lot of it comes to light now because of cell phones, but back in them days, a lot of stuff stayed hidden. So what you see on the news with all the prisons and stuff, that's been going on for years, a lot worse. You know what I mean? It's just getting revealed now, you know? And, so, you know, it was a whole big racket down there. I mean, you had to always watch your back, you know, and part of the reason that I became all that was because, you know, that was the challenge. I don't know, you know, I was always looking for the challenge, and, you know, you're outnumbered, you know, 20 to 1, you know, so, and that was the challenge for me, you know, that's, and stuff that seemed to put you back that no one wants to face. That's where I kind of flourished at, you know, but I come out and, you know, still, you know, I was going to try to do the right thing, and of course couldn't never get a job. No one even give you a chance, you know. And so I went into roofing, and if you know anything about stuff like that, most of these roofing crews or stuff are, you know, there's drugs and all that stuff, drinking, and so I wound up getting back to drinking. I started drinking again, and after a while, it come wintertime, and can't do no roofing in the wintertime. So, fixing to lose the place I'm staying and all this. So, what I did in prison, because mom couldn't never send me money or stuff like that, I hustled. You know what I mean? I sold drugs in there, and I loaned money and stuff like that. So that's what I started doing out here. Started out dealing cocaine. I found someone to that, and then someone asked about crank, and I was like, "What's crank?" I didn't even know what it was then, which was the meth. Took me 2 weeks to sell an ounce of cocaine. I found some of that in 30 minutes. It was gone. I was like, "Wow," you know what I mean? And so I got on that. And there at one time down here in Burnsville, I sold it all. I sold cocaine, marijuana, meth, pain pills, acid. I mean, I had the whole 9 yards going, and it looked like a McDonald's at my house. Of course, eventually they kicked my door in. And so at that time, I'm with just to show you, the girl, which winds up being my first wife. She couldn't ever understand why her daddy didn't like me. Her daddy was a preacher, you know what I mean? And he was the guy I cussed out in the prison. You know what I mean? Yeah, he was the one that come to my door down there, and I told her, I said, so you can see all the instances, times where the Lord was knocking on my door, and I didn't realize it, because when me and her got bad then. Of course they raided our house, and we both went to jail, and I wound up with a 2-year sentence and go back to prison. And so now I'm thinking, well, maybe there's something to this God thing. You know what I mean? And so I start reading my Bible. I go into prison this time, and I'm like, look, fellas, do what you're doing. I ain't got but 2 years. I'm going to do this and get on out. If you need me, I'm here. But otherwise, you know what I mean? And as I got to the end of my sentence, I found out she was pregnant. And so she got pregnant around the time that, got locked up. So, but right before I got out, I found out the baby wasn't mine. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And well, that's the devil. The devil knew, and he knew what I'd do. I threw that Bible down, and I was like, there can't be nothing. You know what I mean? And I know it was 20-something years later before I ever picked that Bible back up. Yeah, and so now, I know what them attacks look like, but as just starting to believe and get in, he threw me right off the path. And I bit it hook, line, and sinker. Anyway, I go do this 2 years. I get out, and a childhood friend, I wind up start seeing, and we wind up married, and we have my son. So most of my life, I can tell you, I really don't know. I can't really sit here and say that I knew what love was. You know what I mean? Because for me, my comfort zone was always, violence and chaos, because, that's all I've known all my life, And, so you go back and think about all that, I check everything for someone that's never going to amount to anything. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The abuse, the homes, the drugs, the jails, but anyway, but when this kid come in, God knows what to put in your life to change you, because, I've been threatened with prison and jail, and you can't threaten someone that's grown up in that. Right. It ain't nothing that bothers me, but when he come along, it started to change me. I hung out with him a lot, and I put a lot of time into him. You know what I mean? And it was me and him for a long time. Mm-hmm. We'd be out in the woods when he was a little kid, with BB guns and just all kinds of stuff. And so me and her started getting into it. This is my second wife, and so something to do with money, and I brung the drugs back. I'd not touched it in 10 years. You know what I mean? Said I never would. And I knew when I was bringing it in that it was going to destroy us. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think I kind of wanted that. Me and her had been at it, and I was like, all right, so, I'm going to do this, and this is going to, you know what I mean? I didn't think that she would get hooked on the stuff too. You know what I mean? And it really created a separation between us.
Right.
Anyway, in the get go, we wound up getting split up and divorced, and she had custody of the kid, and that really drove me to a place I'd never been. Instead of being a drug dealer, I became the drug addict. You know what I mean? And then before you know it, I done lost my job, lost my vehicles, had to move in with my mother. Just sunk down into a depressed and a dark place. And all my friends, and then I had the feds chasing me behind went long after that they got a bunch of the AB gang members, like a 40 count indictment. They got them on the RICO Act and stuff like that. And, they've been following me around. And then I had the county like Glover and all them trying to get me on, you know what I mean? Stuff. And then, I had all this going on. So I just, about went crazy with all of it,
Yeah.
And then one day I just like she would bring my kid over to the house, like, when he wasn't in school, on the weekends or when he was out. And he was there. And during the week, I'd just go off somewhere and be getting high. And I was coming in. I knew he'd be there Friday. And I come in and there he is. And he's like, runs up, hugs me. He says, you're the best daddy that I could ever have, And man, that tore me up, you know what I mean? Because I knew I didn't, I wasn't. And, so I went in my room and man, I sit there and it just bothered me bad. And I sit there and I'd been up for days and I wrote this poem. It was like the story of my life as I was sitting there thinking about all this, And I got on my knees, and that's when I said, all right, God, I said, if you're real, I'm ready to follow you. You just show me that you're real, and I will, And of course, he did. You know what I mean? I mean, he started changing my life then. She had custody of the kid, had a restraining order on me, and all kinds of stuff with the kid and stuff. And by the end of school my kid said, Daddy, I don't want to go home. So it started with me getting off the drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to sit at home, be a Christian, not go to church. I said, I wasn't going to go up there with all them hypocrites and stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, so what I did, me and my kid, we done things together. We had movie nights together and all that stuff, Well, let me back it up there a minute. School was fixing to start. And he's like, well, Daddy, I want to stay here. And I was like, you know what, son? I said, I don't know how we're going to do it. I says, I'll pray about it. This is what we do, And at that time, I wasn't going to church. I was just reading and praying, And if it's meant to be, God will show us,
Right.
And, she pulls up to come get him. And I said, he don't want to go home. He wants to stay here. And she says, is that true? And he's like, yeah. She said, all right then. Just like that. Wow. And, I've had him ever since, So, the Lord started building my faith up then, And, like I said, I quit the drugs. And then, of course, I still drank. I didn't think there was nothing wrong with that at that time,
Mm-hmm.
And, so me and him have movie nights and stuff like that. We've done, like I said, a lot of different things together because, I could see through mine and her feuding. I seen, I remember how I acted, when I was going through the things as a kid, and I started to see it in him,
Mm-hmm.
And so, I put more time into him and try to correct those things, It's hard to do it on your own because in the end of the day, there's a reason there's a family.
Right.
A mother's got a role and a father does, and the one
Absolutely
can't do both of them. We may think we can, but the child's going to be lacking somewhere. But in my favor, I had my mother living with me. You know what I mean? So mom kind of filled that role in. So it helped out a lot. But so Easter rolls around. And the movie I'm going to have him watch is Passion of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sitting there and he's like, I don't understand none of this, Daddy. what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know. I just assume, like maybe school, he learned some of this stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And, and I realized I'd made one of the biggest mistakes in my life right there, assuming that,
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, son. I says, I guess we're going to have to go to church, And I knew then, boy, I didn't want to. I've been at all the drug houses and all this other stuff I've been into. Man, that was the hardest walk for me ever. I ain't been in church. I was 47 at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and I ain't been in church since I was 15. And so I went back to the old church we went to as a kid, where I was, got baptized and saved at, and of course walked right on in there, and they took me. They knew who I was and everything. So we kind of went there. We went there for about a year and a half, and then Dallas started playing football. Wanted to play football, and one night he's in Biggersville, and we're up there, and I see Ryan. Ryan was a captain or something for the county down here, and he's like, Dave, what are you doing? I ain't seen you around. I was like, look, man. I says, I'm going to church. I'm not doing all that stuff no more.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't got to worry about me no more. I said, I'm going to try to find what God's purpose for my life is, and that's what I'm going to walk into. I don't know what it is or what. He said, won't you come to my church? I said, what church is that? He says, I go to the Bridge. I said, ain't that Burnsville Pentecostal, or used to be Burnsville Pentecostal? He said, yeah. And I told him about me cussing Brother Pierce and all that stuff out, and he's like, I can't remember if it was that week or the next week. He said, but Dave, if you want to come down there and apologize to him, he's going to be at church this weekend or next weekend. I couldn't remember. You know what I mean? 30 something years later, you know what I mean? And even now when I talk about it, the hair stands up on me. You know what I mean? I mean, the man had to be, 70, 80 year old, and here he is going to be down here. And so I knew that had to be God, and he was, at that time I was going through the process of making amends to people, and that was the biggest builder for me, So I come down to the church here, and of course, I went down there in front of everybody, and everybody was going down there shaking his hand or doing something. There was something they were doing for him, and I got in line, walked down there, and I said, "You may not remember me, but I said, I cussed you out several years ago." You know what I mean? And which Bishop Rich says he remembers it now. We're friends on Facebook and all that stuff too, but so I come down here, and that's how I first come to the Bridge, and so I went back to my church, and man, I just felt something different here. I knew most of the people here, that it was most people I sold drugs to, did drugs with, they were here, you know what I mean?
Right.
And it had a good youth program, and I just felt something that I didn't feel at the other church. You felt some kind of presence there, and I was like, wow, this ain't like what I'm used to. You know what I mean? And so, I was thinking about it. I was like, man, I like to go there. My kid is the same way, and I was like, but I was kind of loyal to where I'd been. I didn't really want to leave there, and so that whole week, it's like every day someone was coming up to me talking about the Bridge. And I'm like, and finally it was on the weekend, and this lady got in front. I was at the gym, and she got up on front of me and on the treadmill, and she had one of them red Bridge shirts on, right in front of me, and I seen it, and I was like, all right, God, I got you. I understand that, and so I've been there, and I've been here ever since, And, the Lord, like I said, the Lord directed me here. I know he has, beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's just ain't no coincidence like that, And, of course now, I co-lead the jail ministry, the Village of Hope, you know what I mean? The Bridge of Hope, so I'm all part of all that, but, I feel more is coming. And I don't know what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like that ain't the purpose that God's got me here for. He it's been I've grown so much here. I mean, it's to come here and then you see, uh, police officers, former judges, state representatives, ex-cons, ex-addicts, and it all mesh in together like that and be what it is.
Exactly what a church is supposed to be.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's totally amazing.
Yeah.
And, and just to show you what, God, and I didn't really touch on this. So I guess I need to, I talk about the ministries he's got me involved in, but what he's done in my personal life is even bigger. You know what I mean? When I started this change, I remember I was still drinking and, I got a DUI. I worked at Caterpillar and, got a DUI. We got off for 4th of July for a week and, wound up going to jail. Of course, who I was at the time, instead of letting me make bond, they kept me in there 4 or 5 days for investigation. You know what I mean? And I lost my job. Boy, I was mad. And this place I work at now, a lot of people try to get me to go out there, and I would never go out there. I'm not going to go out there and work for $9 an hour. I thought it was better than that. You know what I mean? And building pallets or whatever, boxes or whatever they build out there. And anyway, I lost that job, got out of jail, lost that job, and then I went to the silicone plant. And I was working there, and the boiler goes down. So they're going to tell me, hey, it's going to take a couple of weeks for that to get down. We'll call you back. 2 weeks go by. Guess what? It's still down. I got to have a job. The only job left is the one I'm at now. The only job. I was like, well, I'll go ahead and do it, I got until something better comes along where that opens back up. And so I went out there and COVID done hit and all that. So, everybody was getting back to normal. And there was $20 an hour jobs everywhere. You know what I mean? And guys were leaving there, I'm going with them, putting in for it. None of them called me. Everybody I go with, they get called in for jobs except for me, And I was like, Lord, what are you doing? I mean, you want me to be here? I'm struggling. I was really struggling, And my boss comes out there and he says, man, they want us to hire a safety coordinator. And he says, that's going to be you. I was like, all right, so, and then, of course today, at that time, the plant was kind of messed up. We were having problem keeping people and, a lot of thugs out there, they were just fighting and so we were trying to change the atmosphere, So he told me, if people, start bringing them. We had the Safe Haven down here, and so I started bringing people from Safe Haven, the recovery programs, and that's what most of our plant wound up being. It changed the whole atmosphere. You know what I mean? I mean, there at one time you had Tyler, Steven, and all them. I don't know if you remember them. There's Bible verses on boards here and there, people praying, and so he put me in that position. Of course, it's I'm assistant plant manager. I'm over safety and training and all that stuff now, and it wound up being the best job of my life, and God did that. Yeah, not absolutely. Me, you know what I mean? They want you to have to know this and degrees and all that in the position and I have none of that. Right. I've got the worst prison record you ever hear of, and God has put me in there to do that, Yeah. And I know it. Yeah. And there's not a morning I don't get up. You heard that song, hey, God, that we sing, God, I'm just grateful for you. Mm-hmm. I am. Yeah. I really am, because I know what he's done in my life. Right. And and we influence people out there like that. But at the same time, I was still, you remember Pastor Jason giving a sermon, he said, one day you'll get in touch with the Holy Spirit and it won't be here at church. You'll have that touch. It'll be somewhere different. And, that it happened to me out there. Really? And that was the biggest change in my life, because even though I was going here, I didn't want to do none of this. I didn't want to, I sit back there in my little seat that I always sit in. And even though I'm part of something, I'm not really part of it. You know what I mean? I'm still holding on to the worldly things, Mm-hmm. I still drank. and you know, and how that went away. The Lord took that out of me too, because I had no intention of quitting that. And I've been going here for a little bit, and one day I get off work and I go buy me a 6-pack of Heinekens. That's what I like, Heinekens, you know. And I tried to drink them, and they were just awful. And I was like, man, something's wrong with this beer here. It ain't no good, you know. Mm-hmm. And I tried it the next day, another one, same thing. And I poured it out or give it away. And they was like, nothing wrong with this beer. I said, no, I know it was. I didn't try to drink it. Went back a couple of weeks, tried to get another one, same thing.
Wow. And
I quit. I wouldn't touch another beer. Every time I tried to touch one, it was just so nasty I couldn't drink it. And then of course, you know, so I just quit. You know what I mean? Just like that. I know now that's the Lord doing that, you know. Right. And but anyway, getting back to what I was saying, that the spirit, like I said, I still drank, I still done this, I still cussed. My plant manager at the time, he was real influential in helping to, you know, I cussed like a sailor. You can imagine most of your life in prison, I cussed worse as a sailor.
Right.
And he was always telling me little things like that, which helped to build me along, you know. And so we had this guy, and he'd been worried. He worked out there. They done found, you know, he done had a bunch of tests run, and they done found a lot of spots on his liver, you know. And so we all knew the story. He talked about it. He's worried to death about it. He was going for the biopsy. They was going to, you know, see if they were malignant or whatever they call that. And so my boss says, you go around and get everybody that believes in the power of prayer and bring them in here. We're going to meet in the conference room. We're going to pray for him before he goes for this. And I was like, all right. So I did that, and I walked around, gathered everybody up in there. And, you know, he says, look, we're all different denominations in here. I mean, we had different, you know, we had some Pentecostal, had quite a few of us from up here, you know, he's Baptist. We had a Methodist and some other denomination in there. So he said, what we're going to do, we're just going to place hands on him. And we're in a room like this, you know, you got windows, but they don't open or nothing, you know. Mm-hmm. And just pray whatever you're going to pray out loud, you know. And that's what we did. And, man, I felt this wind, and it kind of freaked me out. And then I felt like this power. That's the only thing I know how to explain it. It's just a weird feeling. And I'm thinking, when it happened, it startled me. You know, I was like, you know, I'm crazy, you know, thinking in my head, I'm tripping, you know what I mean? And I didn't say nothing about it. You know, I didn't say nothing, a thing about it. And I kept wondering, I was like, man, I wonder what that, you know, I was trying to think rational thinking, you know, the carnal thinking of it, you know, trying to find the reason for it. And I couldn't never find one. And Stephen calls me about 3:00 that day, and he says, man, he healed him. I said, healed who? He said, Paul. I said, what do you mean? He said, man, he went to that doctor and to the hospital up there, and they fixing to checking all that, and they couldn't find nothing. He said, the doctor come and had him in there 6 hours. Had him in there 6 hours and said, sir, he says, I do not know what to tell you. I don't know how to explain this. And the place said, dude said, hey, I know what happened. You know what I mean? And wow. Yeah, and that changed me, because I knew then, and then I heard, you know, the pastor talk something about feeling the wind from the Holy, and then I told him about that. He said, oh, he had me get in front of the church and tell about it, you know. And that changed me. That changed me big time, because up to that point, I still listened to rock music. After that, I went to like Caleb, and I've not listened to nothing else no more, you know. And, you know, I quit the cussing, and you know, started quitting doing all that. Had the most profound effect on me, you know, to experience that, you know. Yeah. And it's been all good since then, you know. And hey, the Lord is just, you know, it's unreal. You know, I don't know how to explain it, you know. When I go into the jails, you know, and I try to tell them, y'all just don't understand, man. You know, I mean, people even in our church, you know, they hang on to like I did. I hung on to the worldly stuff, and I still dealt with worldly stuff. You know what I mean? I still got depressed or have anxiety. I have none of that no more. There's nothing special about me. You know what I mean? Only thing is I'm faithful to the Lord. You know, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but when I realize it, I'm repenting and trying to do better. You know what I mean? And, so I got that joy. And once you get that joy, you want everybody else to have it. And people just, they don't get it. I try to tell them sometimes, and I said, it's there. You've got to give in, because like me, I bucked and fought all the way. I didn't want to turn this loose or that loose. You know what I mean?
You weren't the prodigal son. He had to drag you.
He had to drag me through there. You know what I mean? And now I'm like, why? Here I am 5 years later, and I'm ready now. There's he has transformed my whole life. Mm-hmm. So I can never repay that. I'm indebted to him. Whatever he wants, I know it's from him. I'm going.
Yeah.
It may not be comfortable. Yeah. Then I know it's from him. Because everything, what I mean, is very uncomfortable. And I try to preach that to them. I've got some that if you're struggling with all these different things, anxiety and depression, then you ain't got your walk right with him, because the Lord, I'm not saying it ain't real, because it is real. Right. But it don't last. You put your faith in him, and you overcome it. I don't have that stuff no more. You know what I mean? Hallelujah. Absolutely. And, but it's sad, and, because, once you get that feeling, I'm not saying I'll never, I've learned about saying never, you know what I mean? But I just do not believe wholeheartedly that drugs will ever be part of my life, Right. I hear them say that a lot. Well, I don't trust me. Yeah, I don't trust me. I trust him. And he says I'm healed. He's still healing today, and I believe it, and I'm not going to doubt it. I think doubt is the biggest killer. It creates those mountains, so. But yeah, man, that's about the size of it, he directed all that, he could take someone like me. And like I said, I checked all them boxes there. I've all the bad stuff that can happen to anybody, that to mess them up and make them messed up the rest of their life. Right. I've been there. I've been that. You know what I mean? And but yeah, here I am today. Restored, and I'm not restored. Right. He didn't redeem. He didn't restore. He's upgraded me in every aspect of my life. You know what I mean? And so. Awesome. It's like, I tell them, you run out here trying to plant a tree. Hey, the Lord's got a whole forest for you. You know what I mean? And it's true. You can never fathom where your life will be with him. I would never thought I'd be at where I'm at today. I
thought I would.
I get it. And it ain't just the where I am at in like my career and stuff like that. And not just that, I'm talking about as far as the joy and the peace. Right. And it's just more and more, I hear people all the time, and I got a bunch of them I talk to about showing up for church, you know what I mean? Because, I was like that, I didn't want, hey, look, Sunday, if they wasn't that, if they, and how they are here, they ain't studying the time, football season. Hey, I got to get out of here. When it's coming on, I'm getting out of here. If the service ain't in it, you know what I mean? Yeah. Wednesday, if I didn't feel like it, I'm tired, I wasn't coming. You know what I mean? All the little extra things, I'm not coming to that, which was wrong. Yeah. So, I try to convey that to others, hey, especially those that are leaders. Look, people are watching us, so you only go to church on Sunday. Hey, look, you can't be part-time with the Lord. Yeah. He was all the way with you. I mean, they say, well, I'm tired. Hey, Jesus was tired when he's toting that cross all the way up to the, up to Golgotha there, but you know what? He still did it. He had to get someone to help him tote it, but he was there. So why should we give him any less? Right. Why should we, look, he's restored you. He's restored your family. He's give you jobs. He's broke those chains of addiction or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But you only going to praise him on Sundays, and that's the way I think. I think society as a whole, we tend to put God on our terms. It's us on his terms. He created us. We should be, he created us to praise him. You know what I mean? And so I feel like I noticed the more that I started paying attention and doing the right things, I told I told Pastor Jason one day, he always preaching on tithing, and I'd sit back there, this is when I first started out there, and I just barely getting by. Gas was like $6 a gallon, I was making like $11 an hour at that time. And I'm like, man, you just, got single father. And I told him one day, it was at CR, and I said it, and he was back there, and I said, I'll be shooting you with them old imaginary bazooka bombs, every time you say something, I'll be out there shooting you with them, you know what I mean? But, I heard it so much that, I'm the type too, when it keeps popping up, there's something going on here.
Yeah.
So I started doing it. Even though I didn't really could afford it.
Right.
And then the next thing, the raises started coming. I got like 3 in 1 year, and so I was telling them all about that, because that's kind of what we're here for. You go through things in life, and you can, by you telling it and the Lord carrying you through it, then you can testify for that for someone else, I slipped one time, and was about a year ago, I guess last 4th of July. I've not been drinking 3 or 4 years. I've been quit, since that little incident. So I was like, 4th of July, I'm gonna go camping. I'm gonna give me a bottle of wine. I'm gonna watch fireworks, drink a little bottle of wine, and I didn't think there'd be nothing with it. I knew that I ain't got a problem with it.
Right.
But then all the buddies started coming up. Hey man, you ain't drunk a beer with me in 3 years. You know what I mean? And so all right, I'll drink one with you. And then for long, the next thing you know, I drank another one. And another one. Then next thing you know, I was letting a cuss word come out of my mouth. You know what I mean? And then I realized, I see what happened, and I went on to bed. But for 3 days, man, my joy was gone. Yeah. And the devil was in my head. I let him get in he found that kink in my armor, and he was poking at it. You ain't this, you've lost this. You know what I mean? It was all in my head, and I've been wrestling with it. And then all of a sudden, Brother Jason comes up one Wednesday night. He didn't know none of all this, and just out of the blue, he comes up, he says, why don't you get up there and do the offering prayer tonight? And I was like, I was like, all right, but that kind of told me that I knew Lord was saying, get out of that, it's all right, and so I come in Tuesday and to CR, and they give the little blue chip, and I got up there, and I was like, I got up there and got the little blue chip and told them why I was getting it, because everybody's looking. He knew I'd been, right. And I was like, look, I'm going to tell you what happened here, and I'm going to tell you why not to do it, because I'm not saying it's right or wrong, you know what I mean? But, I lost 3 days of joy, in misery over nothing. It wasn't even worth it, you know what I mean? So once the Lord takes something out of your life, ain't no sense of flirting with it,
You can't give the enemy that nail in your house.
Right. Yeah. And it was true, you know what I mean? Yep. Well, Brother Jason hears that, so Sunday he's got me up in front of the church telling that one. Yeah, so, but I mean, that's what it's for. I don't mind doing that, because that's, people need to hear that, otherwise, because there's someone that's going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
And, that's just, hey, I make all kinds of mistakes. I'm never afraid to admit them. You know what I mean? I've done some pretty bad things in my life, or been part of some very bad things in my life, and not trying to be, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, I'm a perfect example of when kids' mothers say, "Hey, don't watch who you hang out with." You know what I mean? Yeah. Me hanging out with the wrong people, changed my whole life. But God knows what He's doing. even though I didn't, a lot of years of misery there, and, but it was simple as if I would change my ways and follow him, I wouldn't have to deal with all that,
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I wouldn't have the story and wouldn't be able to go to talk to the people that I do now,
Yeah.
There's nothing better when you go in there and these guys say, well, if he changed you like that, he can do it for me. That's right. He can, because, not many people's got as bad a record as I had, I mean, most of my stuff was violent, and, so, I've lived all my life in that chaotic stuff, and never knew no different,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, the Lord's blessed me, man, and and this place has had the biggest part of developing me,
Right.
I think that's one of the good things about it, they don't shun you, they want you there, and you know what I've learned is that we can't change people. We get them in the church house and let God change them.
Absolutely.
Because he will eventually, just like me and my drinking.
Yep.
It took 2 years, but eventually one day it was enough, and he took that away from me. Because like I said, I didn't have no intention of it.
Right.
And, but that's what makes this place special. That's what a bunch of imperfect people, and we come together to serve a perfect God, and we reach into the heart of the community and get the ones that everybody says, you know what I mean?
Yep. So obviously, you earned the nickname General somehow. Give us just kind of an insight as to how you got that nickname.
Well, that's Bishop Rich.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend. We used to go to bars, and you'll see her. She'll come back, sit back. She usually back there in the back, sitting with me at church. Anyway, she got in a low spot, and then of course, I met up with her and started witnessing to her, and so she come to church, and she got saved, and they let me baptize her. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So Bishop Rich made the statement that explaining how I was in jail. He went in jails with us, and he's like, yeah, he's like the general. They listen to him, and la la la. You know what I mean? And then so Pastor Jason said, that he sent me a message. He said, man, that really resonated with me, because that's what you're a general in God's army, and that fits you perfect, and that's what I'm gonna start calling you. So that's how it got there, and I don't know what what made Bishop say that, you know what I mean? But I can look back over my life and really, I'm always in something that's leadership type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the bad, in the gangs I was, you know what I mean?
Right.
At work I am, you know what I mean? So, that's where the Lord wants me, you know what I mean? Is all I can say, I mean, he just blessed me, man. I mean, I'm so grateful,
Yeah.
And the way he's changed my heart, my perspective, I guess that's the biggest thing. You know what I mean? I mean, I know what I was before all this, very, very angry at the world, a lot of resentment and hateful. You know what I mean? I may not show it, but I carried it, inside of me, and, man, all that's gone, and I just wish I could get everybody else to see it, you know what I mean? Which some do, you know what I mean?
Right.
But there's a lot of skepticism out there, you know what I mean?
Oh,
yeah. And if they just knew, and so that that's the thing now, is to get out there and spread the word. That's what we're called to do. And so every so often I like to get together and go to all them places that I used to get high and frequent out and go in there and talk to people and try to get them to come church. Tell them about Jesus,
Yeah.
and that's the objective, Some listen, some say, but you never know. I had one that 2 years ago, and then 2 years later, he comes walking in the door over there, So, man, but that's what it's really about. When you see that, and someone really gets saved, and their lives get changed,
Right.
and like coming to CR, and you watch some of them women in there, they've had their kids took, and they're just.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he just restores it, and little accidents happen here, and
Yeah.
who did that. You know what I mean?
So, for the viewers who don't attend the church, can you kind of explain your hat? Can you explain the upside down backwards disciple?
Yeah. Well, what I was told, and that's what I'm assuming, is that's how you witness.
Mm-hmm.
When people start asking about it, you know what I mean? Now, I don't know if it has a more deeper meaning than that. But that's what I was told by someone, so that's why I got it. So that way, matter of fact, I used that today. Someone's like, "Why is that like that?" And I went to go talking to them. So that's why I wear it. But now I don't know if it has a deeper meaning than that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you?
Well, just explain it more. I think you get the premise, but what do you mean by that's how you witness to somebody?
Well, usually someone come up and ask me, why is that upside down like that?
Mm-hmm.
And that opens the door, for me to say, hey, I'm a disciple. I'm trying to make disciples. That's what Jesus wants us to do,
Right.
required us to do, to go out in the world and make disciples. He didn't require us to come to church and sit there and then go home and go back to normal. That ain't it, that can be an uncomfortable or uneasy thing to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? We had that guy that come sometime last year, or it may have been this year. He had all the bracelets on. That's how he did it, And so this was the opportunity for me. I figured that was the easiest. Going in jails and stuff, I kind of know what I'm doing there. I'm comfortable with that. But out here is a whole different story. You know what I mean? Because most of the time, man, I was real, what do you call it? Let me think of the word I'm looking for. Antisocial.
Yeah.
I'm so used to not being around a bunch of people,
Right.
And so, and when I come here, I was like that. I didn't want to be up there. People touch me, you know what I mean? I'll be like,
Right.
Bishop Rich always hugging on you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
We're a very huggy church.
yeah. So now it don't bother me. I'm used to it, and now I do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they break you all the way down here,
Oh yeah.
and that's what they're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You feel accepted, like you're part of them, and people say to me all the time, "Man, I got all these." I said, "Look at me, man." You know what I mean? So if I don't bother me, you ain't gonna bother them.
Right.
But yeah, it's amazing, man. I was just, that's the, if every church was like that, the whole world would be a much better place. That
Absolutely,
because we could change a lot.
Absolutely, man. How did the jail ministry for you start? Like, that was already going, and then you just joined them, or were you part of the beginning of all of it?
Well, when the jail ministry started, it was Mindy and Candy and all them
Right.
went in for the women. Women been doing it for a while, and then so for the first year I was in CR. It was called CR then.
Mm-hmm.
They kept saying, "Oh, we're gonna get men started, and the men gonna start going." And then eventually it was me and Chris. You know what I mean? Me and Chris and Chris, Tyler, Steven maybe was the first ones that started doing it, and I've been there ever since.
Yeah.
So everybody else has kind of went on their own thing. Tyler went to be the pastor for Freedom Center and all that, and Steven is the house guy, whatever they call that for that over there. So Bush is whatever Tony does, whatever that position's called. You know what I mean? So I'm the only one still there from the beginning. But yeah, and at first I didn't want to go. I didn't want to do that, man. I sure didn't. And we, like I said, I kicked and fought all the way. And Chris wanted me to go with him, so I was going to go with him to support him. And then when he quit, I was like mad. Yeah, Like, man, this dude done got me in this and done sold me out, you know? Yeah, sure was, man. I was like, yeah. And I told him one day, you know, I was like, man, I can't believe you got, but you know what? But God knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew when he got me in there, you know, because I let all them other guys lead everything, and now I do it, you know. So, and I like it now, you know, because you know I've got so many. We had this young man that when me and Bush first started going, he comes to church down here occasionally, and he was young. He was like 17, and so that's where my heart was, you know, because I was at 15 when I went to prison. So when I see these young kids like that, you know, that's where I automatically get drawn to. And so we worked on this kid, and we talked to him, and then he got out, and then he started coming to CR. And then I got him a job up there. He started working with me, and then about a month or so ago, he quit. Told me he's quitting. He was going to go work at a restaurant, manage it for someone. They're going to work around his schedule. That he got his GED, and he's fixing to go to college. So. Awesome. Yeah, so you know, and he's like, "Man, you're the big reason for that. You poured into me. You know what I mean?" Yeah. And that made me feel good. That right. Made me, you know, it was worth it. You know, when you see something like that, you know, because I can remember if I had someone was pouring into me when I was before all that happened, my path could have been different. Right. I just needed that direction, and it wasn't there. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so if I can be something like that, you know, and of course I got a 18-year-old kid, so all his buddies and stuff, you know, that's the same thing I do. I pour into them, you know what I mean? And matter of fact, I just had to go get one of them probably about 2-3 weeks ago. Mama D and them called me to the cross, and the kid had been doing donuts up there, so they had him lay inside and not get charged. But I happen to know the kid, you know, and so I went up there and grabbed him up and talked to him, you know, but you know, I mean, you know, simple mistakes, you know, just, you know, like me, I was just trying to drink some beer and smoke some weeds with some older good dudes I thought was cool. Yeah. And it wound up not being cool, you know. Yeah. I was in a situation I didn't know what to do then, you know, I was scared, and it changed my whole life, you know. So, you know, that's my biggest thing, you know, if I can. Some teenager, you know, because a lot of times teenagers can, you know, especially if you ain't got the right people around, they're influenced real easy, you know. Yeah. And
when you're young, you don't realize the consequences of your mistakes.
No. If I knew what was going to go down that night, I never got in the car with them guys. You know what I mean? Like I said, I wasn't the criminal type like the other one was. Right. Matter of fact, you know, the older guy, he claimed he was an ex-cop. And so he had all this stuff, so we believed him. So we're like, yeah, we're going to go get high with a cop, you know? And wound up being not so, you know. Yeah. I found out later he was an ex-con. He was out on parole. And then Illinois come down here, questioned him on 2 police getting killed up there. Ooh. And he had their stuff, you know what I mean? So I don't ever know what happened with that, but you get what I'm saying? Yeah. And yeah, that was a bad situation. And then he said that me and my rap partner was the ones that come picked him up to go do all that, you know. So it was a big thing there, you know. But, you know, God has purpose in everything. Everything that's bad, you know, that's meant for bad, God turns it around for something good. Absolutely. You know, so now that's what's happened, you know. And I see it, you know. Like I said, I'm just grateful. Yeah. You know, it's so many other guys, and you know, are sitting down there. You know, they get out, they do the same thing over and over and over, and you know, it's as simple as, you know, giving it all to Jesus. You know, let Him transform your life, and then your life changes. You know, I'm really now understanding life. I really didn't get it. You know what I mean? Right. So. And that's my message to everybody, you know. Jesus can take care of it all, you know. If you're struggling with this and that and all this, I'm not saying bad stuff don't happen to the right people, but there's purpose in it, you know. And, you know, like I said, man, I just, you know, it overwhelms me sometimes. Leaves me speechless at times, you know. I mean, how can you explain it to someone that don't get it? You know what I mean? Me and you do, you know, but you talk to someone that's already got doubt in their head, it just don't register, you know?
Right. Oh, I get it. It took a long time for me to start believing too.
Yeah. I mean, most of my life, I would think, can't be one. This wouldn't be happening, I wouldn't be in this, even when I tried to do things. But see, that's what it was. I tried to do things, right? Yeah. And so it always went the wrong way. Yeah. And then when I put it and got saved, started turning my life over to the Lord and started trusting in Him, then all of it started working out perfect. Better than I could have ever done it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So how did Village of Hope get going?
Kayla actually started that. She, you know Kayla Murphy? Yeah. So she's she wanted to start something. I think she was going to somewhere doing something, but she wanted to get something started with kids. She's a single mother, and dealing with. She knew how to deal with children and wanted to deal with children that had like issues coming up. So she went through the church trying to find some people that at different things to contribute to that. Like she's dealt with what do you call that? They don't call it DHS and all that stuff no more.
CPS.
CPS, yeah. She's got a lot of experience in all that stuff and fostering and all that. So, then she gets, asks me that I want to, of course I've been in prison and dealing with, teenage juvenile delinquents and stuff like that. So I bring that into it, the gangs. I've been into the foster homes and all that stuff. So, we got different people that kind of contribute different things to it, in different ways, And so we sit down and she told me what she wanted, and we've been trying to get it off on the ground floor there. I think I think it's a good thing. I think it's just we've got to that's where you start at. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of hurting children out there. It just need to be heard, need to be guided. Yeah. You can carry a chip on your shoulder for most of your life. I mean, I did.
Right.
It took. I was in my 40s before I realized the real reason I acted out so much the way I did, and it come from my childhood. Yep. I held it against my mother for so long that she chose men over us. You know what I mean?
Right.
But now, knowing my mother, because in the last few years, me and Mom's really, because when I hit rock bottom, she took me in, and she didn't have to do that. Yeah. So now the table's flipped, and Mom comes stay with me now. I've moved out on my own, and with the economy, she gets a little check. She can't make it, so she stays with me. And but for the longest, I held that against her and didn't realize the mental aspect of it. That, right. She didn't really grasp. She was a prisoner as much as I was.
Yeah.
And I realize that now, And but as a kid, you don't,
Right.
And so that's a good thing, is people need to understand that you don't think children don't know.
Yeah.
Because they can carry that with them the rest of their lives. Yeah. I did, and of course all my family, my brothers too, Mom and my, I've got one brother, there's three of us, and I've got another one that's alive, and he lives in Birmingham, but my younger brother committed suicide. We all been drug addicts, in and out of prisons, you know what I mean? Even all my stepbrothers, most of us, we kind of had our family reunion at the parole office,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I realize that, that's where it started, and that's where a lot of this stuff starts is as a youth,
Yeah.
And it's hard to grasp Jesus at that time, you know what I mean?
Right. Especially, obviously our understanding kind of the definition that we place on the Heavenly Father is based off the relationship we have with our earthly father. And unfortunately, that's not, A, it's never going to actually compare. And B, the role of the father is not fulfilled the way that it's supposed to be by so many. And I'm speaking, from personal experience myself, I've
Yeah.
got multiple failures as a father.
Yeah, me too.
And I mean, that's, a big reason why my kid goes to Village of Hope. I'm super thankful for you, for what you do, for pouring into him, for pouring into other kids like him. But that's a big problem, obviously, that we face just as a society now, is the fact that the father role is not there to give you at least some idea of what the Heavenly Father is.
Yeah,
so trying to understand that at a young age, when you don't even have a decent father to go, to base that off of, it's just, you're not going to get it.
No. And you know what? The devil's been working out this for centuries.
Yes.
This is where it comes all down to.
Yeah.
I mean, he destroys the family life. This country was founded on God.
Yeah.
And it grew strong because of that. And then we start to get away from that. And the devil, he did little at a time. First, it was taking prayer out of school, and then next thing it is, it's okay to be gay, or just taking the morals away. It's all right to go have sex with such and such, or have a kid, or replace them, or you know what I mean. I mean, this is where our prisons get full, because you ain't got fathers or mothers in the homes no more. They're split. And people says it doesn't have an effect. Yes, it does. and this is what you see today, but it's took decades, all these years for it to, you know what I mean? Yeah. And now, he's steadily dividing, Democrat, Republican, black, white, this, that, I mean, that's what he wants. You destroy that family setting,
Right.
and you divide people, and then we fall.
Yeah.
Unless you get Jesus,
Well, you mentioned early on that it seemed like you were always pulled to the thing that nobody else wanted to do.
Right.
You talked about that with prison and with the gangs, and then going to this job that you didn't even want to go to.
Yeah.
And the way that he turned that around for you, and now you've like you said, you've gone into all these houses that you used to waste time after, night after night, after
hours, days,
and disciple the people. You've gone into the jails where, there's so many that aren't willing to take that step and go there. And now you're talking to teenage kids, and, I know there's a lot that don't want to deal with that, because obviously teenage kids is, that, whew.
Yeah.
But you definitely embrace stepping into that role that nobody else wants. And it seems like you flourish very well. And I understand, that you contribute that all to God, and God just equipping you. And it's amazing that he uses you in that way. And it's amazing that you allow him to use you in that way and equip you for those positions.
I mean, I'm amazed. I would never thought 10 years ago, you tell me I'd be sitting here doing all this stuff,
right.
But that's the purpose of everything. Everything I went through is wasted if I just sit down and done nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So there was this purpose, and I realized I went through some things. It wasn't that he sent me through them things. I put myself in them situations to go through them things, and he let me endure that. And now I can use that for betterment, right. In other people's lives, right. It's a trip when you look back on all of it, because like I said, I'm always reflecting, and I'm looking, and I'm realizing, now I see why this happened and that happened, or how this is turned around. This was meant in a bad way, and how he turns stuff around, the bad for the good. And I can see all that now. I could see it all the way back then. And I could see the times I missed out too. But he never gave up. He's always been there, and I was the one that just kept running. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's why I say there's something more. Yeah. I feel like this is the groundwork, because he done pulled me being stubborn. I wouldn't, like I was telling someone, I wasn't a sheep. I was a goat. You know what I mean? Goat's stubborn,
Yeah.
And yeah, I may sit there for a minute, but I kick and I buck, you know what I mean? And but yeah, he broke me down. And I'm glad he did. I'm thankful that the Lord has let me live this long to get my life in gear, to get it turned around,
Right.
to trust in him, because there's many, many times that I should be dead right now.
Yeah.
If not dead, then sitting in prison for the rest of my life. I can remember times that Ryan has stopped me and I'll be loaded down with dope hit and there just know I'm finna go back to prison for the rest of my life. And thought I was slick, thought I done got away with it, you know what I mean? But I realize now he was looking out on me.
Yeah.
The Lord, that wasn't where he wanted me at,
Right.
And I know here there's a reason for it, you know what I mean? And I've got a lot of growing, a lot of maturing to do, I'm a long way from where I need to be, but I'm at the right place to learn,
Absolutely.
and I realize that,
Yeah.
And I remember from the first time I gave my testimony at CR, and I said, I don't know why I'm here. I just feel like I'm at the right place. And I can look from the time that I give that first testimony here, the changes that's happened, that I wasn't wrong, because my whole demeanor is beginning to change. And I can see, how Jason, Brother Jason get up there and preach to the preacher. He said, I can tell the new ones when they come in, first they sit back there like this, and then they do this, then they'll stand up. Then you might see them do this, then next thing you know, they're like,
Yeah.
I can see all that because I went through that whole process.
Oh,
When he said it,
I did too.
he said it one day and I was like, you know what? And I thought about it. I said, I went through it just like he just said too. You know what I mean?
What you were just saying is, we had been regularly attending at that point, an hour church. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
You get in, you do your hour, you leave. That's it.
Yeah.
And for certain people, that works. That's great. We come here, and I was like, good Lord, y'all just go on forever. and especially when y'all got up the second time to worship, I'm like, we done did this part. Yeah. We're gonna check out. We're leaving. We sticking around for part two. We were already here for part one.
I was there.
And we did that, Sunday after Sunday. When it was time for second worship, we would just get up and we'd walk out. We're one of those groups. And I don't judge anybody that does it because obviously we did it.
Yeah, I did too.
But I remember the first time that it was just, man, that message just hit. And I felt that calling, when he called it up to the altar. And, I was kind of hesitating because I'd never done that. I'd never submitted in that way.
Right.
And Brianna looked at me and, she goes, hey, are you ready to go? And I was like, no, I'm ready to go up. And she was like, well, we'll go. So I went up to the altar that day and just everything's changed since then.
Right.
After that day, we started staying until the end. And of course, now we're one of the last ones to walk out. We're talking to everybody. And once you get in his house, you don't want to leave.
Yeah. I mean, it really changes you. I mean, that's like I said, I can come in here and like he says, and I'm not rare, look, I know where I'm at. I know what I got. And I'm grateful.
Yeah.
I'm not one of them that takes anything. Look, I've had my freedom taken for so many years where I had nothing but a bar of soap and a roll of tissue.
Yeah.
The last me a week or so, you know what I mean? So I'm very grateful, of the things. But even if I'm on the wrong, just kind of agitated or something, and you come in here and you get in worship, it changes you. Like you said, you happy when you leave, or I am, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's the, you can't, someone come here and go up front up there and hang out. They can't tell me they don't feel the spirit move down there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It is an experience.
Absolutely.
And that's what I try to tell people. I said, man, just come, and then tell me afterwards,
give it a few weeks.
Yeah.
Really let it start kind of working in you, and then you'll change.
And the people will rub off on you. You know what I mean? And that's the good thing about it.
Yeah.
Because I've went in churches and you already know I'm used to people looking at me crazy. You know what I mean? I've dealt with it all my life. So I've always, I guess it's from prison, you know, being in prison so long, you know, I'll be sitting there looking at that camera, but I'm watching over here, you know what I mean? So I'm always, you know, I guess, you know, when you have to live your life like that and it's just secondhand, you know what I mean?
Right.
I have no reason to do that now, but I still, you know, I do. And so you always see the weird looks people give you and stuff, but when you come here, it ain't like that. You know,
Right.
they're up to you, and you know they may overwhelm you with trying to hug on you or something. You know what I mean? But it's good, man. It you know it has they have transformed my life. You know they you know they take a you know a hardened heart and have melted it down. You know what I mean? With their kindness and their love, you know. And, you know, anybody out there that's going through something like that, you know, I recommend come to the bridge and be persistent in it. And don't just come and grab you a seat in the back row. Well, you can. You come sit up there with me, and I'll drag you up there with me. You know what I mean? But you know, get up there up front and really just a couple times, and then you know your life's going to change.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it has to. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see no other.
I don't know how it wouldn't.
Yeah, you know.
I really don't.
I mean, that's how strongly I believe that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You know, you mentioned a few times that your resume, basically, you know, looking at your life is just stacked of, you know, like you said, the childhood abuse, getting into alcohol, drugs, prison, you know, getting caught up with stuff when you were just young, and then getting into gangs, getting into leadership of gangs, working, you know, everything just stacked up against you.
Yeah.
Like you said, just to keep you down. You know, basically like you're just facing this giant.
Right.
And I couldn't think of a better name for you, David.
Yeah. Well, you know, I almost said that, you know, when you showed me the sling, and I was like, you know what I mean? I mean, really, you know, everything is, you know, all these things that it has happened in my life, I shouldn't be where I'm at today. You know, should not. You know, most people don't make it through all that.
Right.
You know, but yeah, because of God, here I am. You know what I mean? But God, you know, and I never, you know, I used to, when I first come out here, I hear people holler that, and I didn't kind of get it. I get it now. I fully get it now. You know, and it's true. You know,
absolutely.
And you know, I just don't see how people, you know, now you know, it's so hard for me to comprehend it now. You know, how can you not? You know, if you really went to, you know, and I know people go to other churches and stuff, and they've got a miserable existence, you know, but I know their life too. You know, they're this, and then they're this, you know, and until you let go of that world and get fully surrendered to the Lord, I mean, you're going to battle all that, you know, and it's that simple. Yeah. It's as simple as surrendering your life to the Lord, walking into what He has for you, and whatever they may be, you know, because He's got purpose for every one of us. And if we don't walk into that purpose, then we're going to struggle. You know, you're walking into the devil's purpose. He's got purpose for you too. Yes, you know what I mean? That's so if you're on the wall, you're on the devil's purpose. You know what I mean? You've got to be fully invested over here and surrendered. And then when you do that, then then life begins for you. You know? And I mean that, you know, in every way. I mean, you know that, you know, it's a lot. Sometimes it's hard to get there, and you just don't see it. But once you get there,
it's so worth it.
It is. It's worth more than anything. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I tell them guys that in jail, look, and I mean this. You know, most people in jail and dealing with a lot of this stuff is, you know, we come from chaotic lives. You know, abuse, you know, single parent homes, you know, just all kinds of stuff, you know, and, you know, we run around all of our lives trying to find what fills that spot in our heart, you know. You know, for me, it was drugs and women and you know, whatever, you know, and it gives you a moment of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Is about all I can say. Just a little speck, and the next day it's right back. And I tell them, the problem is you'll never feel that. Nothing can feel that. That's Jesus. Jesus is the only one that can fill that spot in your heart. We were created to fellowship with God. When He created Adam and Eve, He fellowshiped with them in the Garden of Eden and stuff, until sin separated us. And so we're born into sin now. And, we've got an emptiness in our heart, and nothing can fill that but Jesus.
That's right.
And once you fill it with that, then you know it. You be like,
right.
oh, that's what I've been looking for.
That's right.
And nothing of the world can fill it.
Mm.
You were always back to where you was trying to fill it again. And I realize that, and I tell all them that now. I just hope they listen.
Ooh, I know I am inspired after hearing this. I hope that the viewers are as well. I'm sure they are. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate letting me talk.
Come on, for sharing everything of your life, for enduring everything you endured, and still allowing God to work through you to reach so many. And like you said, this is only the beginning.
I believe that. I feel that. You know what I mean? I feel that and it may not be.
Right.
But in my heart, I feel like there's something more coming, and I don't know what. But I trust in Him with everything, And
He'll tell you exactly what it is.
Yeah.
As soon as it's time for you to step into it.
That's right. That's right. Everything's on His time.
Yep. Always.
Yeah.
Always, no matter how much we try to rush it.
I ain't trying. Like I said, I trust in Him, and I know that when the time's right, it'll be revealed, Yeah. And I probably ain't going to like doing it, what I mean? It's probably going to be something that's going to make me very uncomfortable,
right.
But I've learned, He makes a way,
Yep.
He, just like I said, before I ever gave my testimony, He made a way for me. I didn't like talking in front of people, you know what I mean? And then He puts me in a position at work where I got to get up in front and talk in front of people, you know what I mean? And so that set the stage, I can see where He's slowly broke my barriers down, and it's awesome. Yeah, it really is.
Yep. And in the meantime, He's got you doing plenty.
Yeah. Yeah, I stay pretty busy. And not mad about it now. I used to be mad about it, you know what I mean? And like I said, that's, a lot of it I didn't really want to do, I was just going to come to church and go back home, do my thing, you know what I mean?
But God.
But God, right. And that brings, hey, that's what sets it all up, really.
Absolutely.
When that helps you grow, and I get just as much as I'm giving back to them. Them guys said, "Man, we appreciate y'all coming," and I said, "Man, you bless me." I said, "Y'all bless me."
Right.
Really, it goes both ways. And I can see it now where I couldn't when I was sitting over there frowned up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I appreciate it, David. Thank
yes,
you
sir.
so much.
I appreciate you doing it, man. I appreciate all you do with it.